Thank you, Your Honor. Call them off the rest.
After 28 days of testimony, prosecutors for the state resting their case in the Karen Reed murder trial. They finished with their final witness, the medical examiner, on Friday. A Canton DPW plow driver sworn in as a first witness for Reed's defense. The driver testifying that he made multiple passes by the house on Fairview Road through those early morning hours and did not see O'Keefe's body. Then came a retired emergency room forensic pathologist testifying that O'Keefe's arm wounds were likely caused by a large dog attack. The doctor was pressed on how well she knew the case during cross-examination.
There's also little punctate, incomplete puncture marks here, little round marks right there that were inflicted by the actual point of the tooth.
Are you being asked as an ER doctor to come to a quick conclusion in this case?
No.
But you did anyway.
It's how I'm trained.
Then the president of United States Forensics, a digital investigation firm, took the stand, testifying that O'Keefe's cell phone and health data show him taking steps and ascending 3 flights of stairs. He later testified that Jennifer McCabe Googled, quote, "How's long to die in the cold" at 2:27 a.m. The prosecution has said that happened after 6 o'clock that morning. Now,
you are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay. How is everybody doing? Boy, do I want to talk to you today about Karen Reed trial and her garbage witnesses. Is this what we were all waiting for? I think I said to my boyfriend maybe 3 times the same thing. Honey, they were so bad. He's like, yeah, I know, you told me. You told me. But no, you don't get it. They were so bad. They were so unbelievable. They were so untrustworthy. They were so bottom of the barrel garbage defense witnesses. I couldn't believe that they put them up. I think they would have done a better job having not put on a defense. It made them look worse, not better, after these witnesses. And let's just get right into it. Starting with Lucky Loughran, the attention-seeking. Hold on 1 second. Let me pull this up before I hope I have this bookmarked. Hope so. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to send it to myself. Unbelievable witness. He's totally embedded in the Free Karen Reed trial. We saw him show up with Karen Reed in pink and red the day before. And he's changed his story a million times. Terrible, terrible, terrible witness. I mean, what are we talking about here? But let's just get into his cross-examination. And before we get any more into it, it was just a crazy, crazy day.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Now, may I approach?
Yes. So just to give you a little background, he's colorblind, couldn't see. Okay, wait, you'll see. You'll see.
Sir, I'm showing you a document that's already been marked as Exhibit 109.
They literally have a blind, well, let's just not call him blind because that's a little bit of an exaggeration. A man with eye issues, attention issues, time issues, story changing issues, allegiance issues. That didn't come out, unfortunately, in Cross. Problems, it seems like, with the Alberts. He worked delivering pizzas for them till he was 35 years old. Okay, let me just repeat that again for those in the back. Till he was 35 years old. Hold on one sec.
Wait. Roberta, are you telling me they had a blind eyewitness?
Yeah, he
They
was
had a blind
colorblind, honey. He was colorblind. He couldn't. Eyewitness.
Not a, ear witness.
He wasn't an ear witness. He was an eyewitness, honey. It was so bad. It was so bad. And Microdots on Twitter is trying to, we're going to go through that, I think, after this, but trying to say, oh, he absolutely wouldn't have seen him with his presentation. It's unreal. His rewriting of history. We're back to no snow. Apparently now we've gone from a little snow to no snow at all. His presentation has him plowing asphalt. We'll get into that. So Microdots is, of course, the aligned content creator for the defense here.
Just ask you to look at that and look up whenever you're finished, okay?
Okay, and so he said he saw the Alberts car, their kind of car on the side of the road. I think at 2:30 a.m. But he didn't see, and he didn't call it in, although he ran into a basketball net the same night and did call that in because he couldn't see it. But according to him, he saw it, but he just misjudged the distance. And that's something that came up in his cross. We'll get all into it. It was jaw-dropping, unreal. The whole Karen Reed crowd is incredibly quiet. And when they do say something, they're like, yeah, we proved our case on Cross. What did you prove? You proved that Michael Proctor doesn't like Karen Reed, and he made some inappropriate texts about her. That's what you proved. And rightfully so. I don't like Karen Reed either. She's a psychopath. Who would like her? We're supposed to like a cop killer? I mean, what is going on?
Yes.
You recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
These are the plow routes for the town of Canton.
And there's different numbers that are associated with different routes and different drivers assigned to those routes. Is that right?
Yes.
And if you look down at number 11, is that your route that you were talking about as far as for a portion of Cedar Crest neighborhood that you plow?
Yes.
And that's the route that you were assigned to on January 28th and January 29th of 2022, correct?
Yes.
Now, if I could ask, just as far as there's a certain way that you plow a route. Yeah. Excuse me. There's a certain way that you plow a road, correct?
Correct.
And when you're first plowing the road, you're sort of plowing the middle of the road, correct?
Correct.
And you do it in sort of a fashion that's referred to as ring road right. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what that is and sort of why you're plowing a road in that particular fashion when you're first starting to get out there with the plow?
So ring road to the right refers to the snow coming off the plow. It actually leaves a row of snow We ring road to the right to prevent cars from having to go through the ring road to the left. If you go to the left, you've now put the ring road in the middle of the left-hand lane. So everything's to the right.
So everything's to the right, because if there was a vehicle coming the other way, you'd be plowing into that vehicle. Is that correct?
Correct.
And your goal, sort of, when you're first getting out there to plow the roads, is to sort of clear the middle of the roadway first, correct?
Correct.
So that's where your truck is when you first go out and plow the road, is you're sort of in the middle of the road near the double yellow line, if there is one on that road.
Correct.
Okay. Now, this truck that you were driving, on that day, how long have you been assigned to that truck for plowing purposes?
I was assigned to that truck for probably 2 years, maybe longer.
Maybe longer. Were you driving that same truck in 2015?
No.
No? Okay, so you were driving a different truck at that point?
Correct.
Do you remember what kind of truck that was?
It was an F-550 utility truck,
Was that
pickup truck.
similar in size or shape to the truck that you were driving that day?
No.
So, by the way, when he doesn't work plowing the roads, he works in the sewer system. They literally pulled a witness from the sewers. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to be very blunt today. I'm going to tell it like it is. This was a witness. And what was so interesting on direct, he just came off as just incredibly rehearsed. So why didn't you call in when you saw the Ford Edge on the side of the street? Out of respect for the Alberts. Oh, really? Were you coached? Were you coached intensively by, say, one David Yannetti in a parking lot by perhaps? This is ridiculous. Then all of a sudden he turns like 50 shades of purple, red on the on cross-examination. So these are the kinds of things you look for: differences in mannerism, ease, stumbling on cross, very easy on direct, and a lot of trouble stumbling on cross.
Oh.
Now, you were asked some questions about February 15th, 2022, when you spoke to some investigator on that day, correct?
February 15th?
Yes, 2022. That Paul person you were talking
Yes.
about. Okay. And you met him at a skating rink, is that right?
Correct.
And you said in a statement to him at that time that you would have seen a body on the front lawn or the sidewalk, is that right?
Correct.
Now, are you aware that there is no sidewalk on the same side of the street as 34 Fairview Road?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned some familiarity with the Alberts and with the Albert resident. Are there other people on that route that you're familiar with as far as where they live and who they are and all that?
Yes.
And how are you equally familiar with them, more familiar with them, or less
Equally.
familiar? Equally? Now, familiarity with 34 Fairview Road, does that extend to sort of the lighting around that area?
No.
So do you know that there is actually no street lighting whatsoever in the area of the fire hydrant or the flagpole or anywhere there for several hundred feet?
Correct.
So you do know.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
And so when you're driving by, you're looking for cars coming out of the driveway, cars coming in the opposite direction, people walking, is that correct?
Correct.
And you're trying to look for those objects so that you make sure that you don't strike them or hit them or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
And on February 15th, 2022, when you had this meeting with Paul, you told him about 3:30 or 4 a.m. Is when you saw this Ford Edge on Cedar Cliffs, correct?
Correct.
Now, in fact, when you first spoke to this individual named Paul, you didn't tell him it was a Ford Edge, correct?
Nope. Told him it was a Ford Edge.
You didn't tell him first that it was a small SUV?
Nope. Told him it was Ford Edge.
You remember at any time Paul taking you on the parking lot and showing you different vehicles and asking you if those vehicles matched what vehicle you saw?
No. He wanted to make sure that what I was telling him was accurate. So he
Right. And these are his taped interviews. It's absurd. Absurd.
Showed me what was a Ford Edge, but I had already told him it was a Ford Edge.
So we brought you out to the parking lot at the skating rink that you were meeting at, specifically showed you a Ford Edge and asked you if that was the vehicle.
Correct.
Now, do you know sort of the difference between if you were to see a Ford Edge at nighttime in a snowstorm, the difference between a Ford Edge and a Jeep Cherokee?
Yes.
What's the difference?
The taillights in the back.
What about it?
Ford Edges are more round. The whole back facade is a little bit more round. A Jeep Cherokee are more square.
Now, what color was this SUV that you saw?
I can't tell you that. I am colorblind.
Can you tell, I'm just curious, sir, as far as your color blindness, can you tell whether or not an object is dark or light just by looking at it? Or you can't tell at all?
I can see things that are light. I can see things that are dark. I can see true colors. I can't see shades of true colors.
And so from what you saw, was this light or dark?
Light.
Now, you told this Paul individual on February 15th that the SUV that you saw was exactly where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
Correct.
How do you know where his body was found?
I told him specifically if he was looking at the door, the front door, it was about 3.
Does anybody know what color the Albert's Ford Edge? I thought it was, is it black? So why would it be light? I thought it was black because of the color of Karen's carpet. Am I wrong? Am I wrong on this? Let me know in the comments. Does anybody know what color the Albert's car was? Black. Yeah. So why would he say it would come off light? I'm so confused.
3 feet to the left of the door. And with
To the left of the door?
looking at the front of the door to the left of the door, pushing it up Fairview.
So if he wrote in his report that you told him that the vehicle was exactly where the body was found, that would not be true? Objection.
No, I'll allow that.
Could you repeat that question, please?
If he wrote in his report that you told him that the SUV was exactly where the body was found, that would not be true, would it not?
That would be true. The car was to the left of the door, putting it in front of the flagpole.
My question for you, sir, is how do you know where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found? At any point in time, did you see Mr. O'Keefe's body on the front lawn?
No.
So how do you know where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found?
Through police reports, police interviews, stuff that was posted on the media.
So you've seen police reports in the media?
Well, not
correct?
the police reports, I'm sorry, but what was said during on the news.
He saw it in the news and wanted it's another attention-seeking witness. It doesn't make you look good. The police are not going to show you their police reports. They need strong witnesses that are going to stand up under scrutiny. This is like a nightmare for the defense. A nightmare. Why did they do this? This is the first witness they're going with. Talk about losing credibility. Why did they do this? Because they had nothing else. This was never supposed to go to trial. Guys, never supposed to go to trial. So when they were forced there, when their hand was forced, if you look at David Yannetti's website, dismissed, all his cases, a ton of them in 2023. I think it goes pretty current. Is there dismissed, pled out, dismissed. Very few of them go to trial. They thought they'd put on this campaign and it would never go to trial.
So what you've heard on the news, not necessarily what you saw or what you know yourself, correct?
Could you repeat that question, please?
You're recounting sort of what you've heard or saw in the news. So this doesn't come from your personal knowledge or anything about where Mr. O'Keefe was, correct?
Correct.
Now, you also spoke with some other individuals in May of
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Manny, we're going to get to the dog bite specialist next. Marie Russell. We'll get to her next.
2023, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you tell those individuals that you actually came in? And when you say came in, you come into sort of the main sort of hub or the shed on Boulevard Street, correct?
Correct. We punch in.
That's where you punch in and you pick up your truck and you sort of do your checkpoint around the truck and then you go out and plow.
Correct.
Now, you were plowing on this street. Was there any other sort of subcontractor or anything else that was working, plowing the roads as well?
Yes.
And who was that?
It was by the yard landscaping.
And so they assist as far as the plow route is concerned, and they go around and they plow things on the same route that you were describing, correct?
Correct.
Now, these other people that you talked to in May of 2023, did you tell them at that time that you actually came in around 11:30 p.m. to 12 a.m.?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that, or you didn't tell them?
I don't remember that.
That would be a significant difference, 11:30 p.m. to 12 a.m. from 2:15 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., correct?
Correct.
Now, you also went.
And this is exactly what the police testified, is that he changed his story constantly. This is just a witness that's doing Karen Reed no favors at all. But this is a witness you pull out of total desperation because you have nothing else. And right before this was a motion to dismiss by Alan Jackson. And it was written, I believe, to the Free Karen readers, saying that the Commonwealth had improved their case. And nothing was proved, just dismiss it. And the judge, of course, disagreed. But it was really very carefully crafted and carefully written and passionately delivered, not to the courtroom, but to the TV cameras and the Free Karen readers to hype them up because he knew what was coming next. This is the defense. Everybody's been saying in the comment section, all the Free Karen readers, just you wait till the defense witnesses. This is what we've been waiting for. A blind, colorblind, attention-seeking Free Karen reader. He's one step away from wearing pink and actually he did wear pink and came in with Karen Reed, looked like carrying her bags. Talking to Turtle Boy. And speaking of Turtle Boy, Aiden Carney tweeted, oh, the defense witnesses were so nice and friendly. That's not what the jury is evaluating, Aiden. They're evaluating, they do evaluate on character, but friendliness is not, it's not high up on the list. It's credibility, reliability, consistency in story. And his story has changed all over the place. In addition, he couldn't see he couldn't see the exhibit right in this tiny courtroom, illuminated right in front of his face. And he's supposed to have seen John O'Keefe. Oh, wait, he didn't see John O'Keefe. He was supposed to see a Ford Edge, which was somehow light to him, a light color. And the time is all over the place. Give me a break. This is someone who wanted to be part of the action, wanted to help Karen Reed out, and I believe has some kind of vendetta against the Alberts. They may have fired him. He may have felt slighted by them as a underling working for them, delivering pizzas. Because you don't keep that job till you're 35 and then just leave it on a whim. It seemed like he might have been going with pizzas for a long time. So, But out of respect for the Alberts, he didn't ask them to move their car when he saw on the side of the road, even though that he's ramming snow right up against the car. Okay. Likely story.
You indicated to them at that time that you went past Fairview at approximately 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., correct?
I never did 12, but it was definitely 2:30,
So if they wrote
2:40,
that in a report, that
2:35.
would be inaccurate as well, correct?
Sustained, and only one person can talk at a time.
I apologize. I'm sorry, sir. Please continue and finish your answer.
I didn't hear the question.
Okay. Well, let me ask it again. So as far as if that was contained within a report regarding that conversation in May of 2023, that you went past Fairview Road or went down Fairview Road at 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., that would not be accurate, correct?
Sustained, ask it differently.
Did you go down Fairview Road at 12 a.m. and 2 a.m.?
No,
If that were contained in a report of your conversation you had in May of 2023, would that be accurate?
Sustained, ask it differently, Mr. Allen.
Now, as far as that conversation that you had in May of 2023, did you tell those individuals that you saw the vehicle around 1:30 or 2 in the morning?
again, I don't remember ever saying that.
Is that accurate as far as whether or not you told?
Doesn't he look like a little kid with his hand caught in the cookie jar? I don't ever remember saying that. It just magically landed in the report, guys. I don't know. You can't trust the police, you know. It was probably Proctor writing the report. I mean, come on.
Told them that.
Again, I don't remember saying that.
Did you see a vehicle around 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning?
I wasn't on the road at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Correct. Now, do you also recall telling those individuals that Fairview Road was blocked off by cruisers at about 3 or 3:30 in the morning?
Again, that would have been incorrect.
Do you recall saying that in May of 2023?
I do not.
That would have been incorrect, and I am tailoring my story to the defense's narrative exactly. So the stories that I told before are now incorrect. Now I have the correct times because I'm always keeping an eye on this road all the time. And in fact, I'm always keeping my eye directly on where the fire hydrant is. I mean, if you think that this guy is going to convince the jury that of anything.
Well, think again.
Yeah, thank you, Joan. Tammy Hendricks, thanks for all you do. Roberta, love your channel. Thank you. This is absurd. This is what we call bottom of the barrel. Worst of the worst. Nightmare defense witnesses.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Show counsel. Thank you.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to read, showing you a document. I'm going to ask you to read this paragraph, this paragraph.
He goes up there and Alan Jackson's picking lint off his suit. He just wants to be anywhere but there. It's just been this is a kind of humiliating witness for a lawyer. Nettie seems above being humiliated.
Yourself, okay? And then whenever you're done, just please hold on, right?
And notice that Lally has no trouble keeping up his voice in this cross.
Are you finished, sir?
Yes.
Okay, may I approach this retrieve now?
Yes.
Mr. Loughran, after having reviewed that, as your memory refreshes, as to that conversation you had in May of 2023,
No, it does not.
do you still, after reading that, don't recall telling anybody in May of 2023 that you came in around 11:30 p.m., 12 a.m. on the 28th, 29th?
I never came in at 11:30, 12:30 at night. It was 2:30 calling.
You don't recall indicating to anyone in May of 2023 that you went past Fairview at 12 a.m. and 2 a.m.?
Correct, never did.
And you don't recall telling anyone that you saw the car around 1:30 or 2 a.m.? Is that correct?
Correct,
And you don't recall telling anybody that the part of Fairview containing 34 Fairview was blocked off at 3 or 3:30 a.m., correct?
correct.
Now, if the part of Fairview that you were talking about, you didn't say that in May of 2023, because at 3 or 3:30, the roadway wasn't blocked off, correct?
Correct,
It was blocked off sometime around 6 a.m., correct?
correct.
And so if you had said that the roadway was blocked off at 3 or 3:30 in the morning, and it was actually 6, then when you saw the vehicle would have been off a little bit as well, correct? Objection.
Sustain.
Seeing the car at 1:32 in the morning, with the road being blocked off at 3 or 3:30 in the morning, if the road's blocked off at 6 a.m., then that actually would have been, you saw a car sometime around 5 a.m., correct? Objection.
Sustain.
Sure you didn't see a black Lexus SUV in front of the house at 34 Fairview Road around 5 a.m.?
No,
Now, you also were asked some questions and you spoke to some troopers in August of 2023, correct?
correct,
And County Canton, they have a parking ban in Canton, is that correct?
correct,
That goes from November until April.
correct.
Now, part of your plow route is a road called Tippy Cart, correct?
Correct.
Where is Tippy Cart in relation to Fairview?
It is on top of it's on the right side of Cedar Crest. It would put it 2 streets before Fairview.
And at some point, when you were plowing on Tippy Cart that night, you actually hit a basketball hoop, is that right?
Yes,
And did you call that in?
yes,
And as a result of that,
I mean, just by clocking this guy, you know that he's going to call in anything that isn't by the book. This is a by the book guy, a road guy, literally going to do his route the same way every time, at the same time every time, however long it takes him. And if he sees a car, he's going to call it in. Because it's probably a pretty well-paying job. I would bet it's probably much better paying than delivering pizzas.
what happened with the basketball hoop after that?
nothing. The point was to make sure I was covered, basically. It's why I notified my supervisor that I hit the basketball hoop.
About what time was that you hit the basketball hoop?
I don't recall.
Is it closer to when you started, closer to when you ended?
I don't recall. I don't recall what time.
So you don't recall anything specific about that time, correct?
No, just that I know I hit the basketball net.
And obviously, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or anything, sir, but you didn't intentionally hit the basketball hoop, correct?
Correct.
So you hit it because you didn't see it, correct?
No, I was attempting to avoid the net by going around it, and the machine had a different size body than what it originally had, and I underestimated when I was going around that I need to be wider.
Right. So he's saying he has a problem with distances, which is a problem when you say that the car was 3 feet away from the front door. Laura Graham says, thanks. We just want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Absolutely. Thanks. So either he didn't see it or he didn't judge the distance. Both are terrible. So he chose number 2. He didn't judge the distance well. And this is their star eyewitness.
So you misjudged the distance. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Favorite approach, Ron.
Okay.
Be alley to this.
Before, was that person present there as well? Sir.
Tuesday of last week, Saturday of last week.
And this Paul person that you spoke of before, was that person present there as well?
Yes.
And did you make note of Paul writing anything down, or Mr. Yannetti writing anything down while you were talking to them?
No.
And as far as you're aware,
So now Lally is saying 2 can play that game. And this is the same kind of things that the defense used. So when you met with the police or you met with the prosecutor, did anyone take notes? Because any notes have to be handed over to the Commonwealth. So when Yannetti met in the parking lot with Paul, I assume that's Yannetti's research assistant, private investigator. No notes were taken because they didn't want to hand any over their notes to the Commonwealth. And I thought that was a pretty interesting question from Lally, something we hadn't seen before, but something we had seen a lot from the defense.
there's no reports that were generated from any of those conversations or any of those meetings. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, sir, I'm correct if I say that you're sure about every time that you went down Fairview Road and everything that you saw going down Fairview Road, but you're completely unaware of the time that you ran in to instruct a basketball hoop that night. Is that correct? Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
You're sure about all the times that you went down Fairview Road?
Yes.
And you have no idea what time that you went on Tippy Cart and you struck the basketball hoop. Is that right?
If you ask me to guess, I can guess for you.
I'm not asking you to guess, sir. I'm asking you not to know.
I don't recall exactly what time I hit that net.
Right. You don't want witnesses to guess. You want them to know. You want them to remember something significant like that. And that's a good witness, a witness who remembers, who takes note of the time. And he had to call it in. So he should have taken note of the time. He should have known when he called it in. And this is something maybe Yannetti should have known about and prepared him for in Cross. You called that in because you hit it at around this time.
Nothing further.
Right. Anything, Ms. Dina?
So that's Lucky Loughran, the star witness for the defense. Absolute joke. But I wanted to show you Microdots, who dark presentation that was shown on.
The FBI had talked to him before the state.
This was shown on Court TV, of course. Vinnie Politan being, as Kate from Mass Cultural Mafia puts it, a disingenuous douche. and showing this recreation. So they have three people for Karen Reed on the panel, and one Karen Reed is guilty person, but on his off time, he's also a murderer groupie. I mean, come on. Come on, Vinny. This is the best you can do?
Nick Rocco, how important do you believe this witness is?
Well, Lucky's crucial. I mean, there's a reason why the state police took over a year to interview him, because they didn't want to hear what he had to say. But luckily, the FBI had talked to him before the state police even got a hold of him, and his story never changed. And one of my good friends, Microdots, actually made
Yeah, that's some gaslighting right there. We just heard his story change 56 different times. So when you told them it was this time, they'd be wrong. I don't remember saying that. Oh, when you told them it happened this time, then they would be wrong. I don't remember saying that. I don't remember. I don't remember when I hit the basketball hoop. I don't remember. I can't see the display in court, in the tiny courtroom, but I know for sure what I saw, and it was light. The car was light.
An amazing recreation of this video of Lucky driving down the street. And basically,
I actually have to agree with Nick Rocco here. It is amazing, but not for the same. It's amazing in this gaslighting. Okay. So just note, this is supposed to be Lucky Loughran plowing the streets that night in a nor'easter. Where is the snow? And now they have John O'Keefe with his arms out like a snow angel, not by his side, how it was found, like a snow angel with no snow on him. And Lucky Loughran just plowing asphalt. Just check this out. Just plowing asphalt because it's so necessary that he's out. If anybody's driven in whiteout conditions, you know you can't see 2 feet in front of your face, even with a light. You can bear it's really, really, you go very slowly because it's really hard to see, even with good lighting.
basically shows right here. So
where's the snow? Where's the snow? It's like, oh, it was just a little flurries and then it stopped. And what would be the need to have him plowing the streets in those conditions constantly all night long? What would be the need?
John's body in this video is positioned exactly how he was found.
See, this is how they con. This is what innocence fraud is it's organized crime. And so Microdots gets in touch with Nick Rocco. They're all making money on this. And they're just conning a gullible public. The people in the front of the Free Karen Reed group, they know she is guilty. They just want to see someone get off. It's an exciting team to be on. They're just on team defense. It doesn't matter. You could show a full video of Karen Reed doing this crime, and they would still be on the defense side. And they convince people to leave any kind of skepticism at the door and just believe that why wouldn't he see him? Why wouldn't he? Oh, wait, there's no snow? What exactly is he plowing here?
The same distance from the curb. Now you're telling me anybody who drove down this street, whether you were...
Wait, did you see he was like plowing? There was like a little snow he was plowing, but there was still no snow actually coming down there. And then the next shot, the snow, it's completely flat, and it's not flat like this either around this area.
Or you were the plow driver, you would not miss a body on the lawn when you drove down that street. Now, Lucky has no...
Shame on you, Vinnie Politan, for playing this. Shame on you. Shame on you, grifting for an accused cop killer. Shame on you.
Reason to change his testimony because, again, like you said, Vinny, he knows.
Yeah, because he knows he's an attention seeker who wanted to get involved in a high-profile trial. In fact, we have another one of those coming up. Believe it or not. But before I do, I just want to show you Hold on 1 second. Just want to show you this picture of Lucky. Hold on 1 second. My apologies. Okay, here we go. All right. So there he is with In Lucky We Trust shirts. These are the free Karen readers, and Lucky Loughran in the middle there. I mean, so he's not in it for the attention. He's not in it for the pats on the back. He's not in it to get over on the Alberts. He's just a reliable witness whose story has never changed except when it does change, which is a lot. Unreal. So wanted to show you that. And now we get into Marie Russell. But before I do, I wanted to show you there's a Give, Send, Go for Lindsay, who is Turtle Boy's victim, and she needs a lawyer. So I pinned it at the top. She needs, for her next court hearing dealing with this psychopath, she needs $4,000. They've raised $550. So anybody who can just give a little, anything helps. $4,000 is no small sum of money. My understanding is they have $2,000 left over from the last. This will show you how much these lawyers make from the last fundraiser. But I'd really encourage you, if you can, please do give. And let's get into Marie Russell. I can't even believe what she's going through. And of course, she has my full support. So but my apologies. Hold on a second. Oh, I have too many windows open, guys. Here we go. So this is an expert in dog bites. And here, Adam Lally's show was amazing on Cross. And I thought the best part of this Cross we'll see is when she talked about, he says, are you aware that there's no dog DNA? And she goes, well, there was a shirt through it. And then he's like, well, they tested the shirt. And she's like, yeah, that's what I thought. They tested the shirt. She seems to not know anything of what she's talking about. We found out in voir dire that she couldn't, and I think this goes through into Cross, if I'm not confusing the two, that she couldn't download the documents from the Dropbox, which is okay. We all have trouble with technology at one time or another and need help. But to not say to the defense, to not say, hey, I have a list of this, that, and the other I'm supposed to review. I'm getting paid probably an obscene amount. I was very disappointed that Adam Lally didn't ask what they were getting paid for the hour. That's a very typical question you ask defense witnesses. Wondered if there was some kind of law that you can't ask that in Massachusetts. I don't know. I was so shocked that none of the defense witnesses were asked that. It's a really common question that you see asked.
Doctor, I am going to ask you to keep your voice up.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
May 17th, 2024.
May 17th of this year, is that right?
2024.
So about 6 weeks after this trial began.
I don't know when the trial began.
Now, as far as who reached out to who?
I reached out to a district attorney that I worked with with the LA coroner's office.
And then somehow that person put you in touch with Mr. Jackson, is that right?
Yes,
And was that also on May 17th?
17th and 18th, yes.
So I'm sorry, 17th or the 18th, which one was it that you?
So for full disclosure, so the attorney she reached out to, my life seems to be like this. All my cases that I cover seem to go into one another. She reached out to DA John Luanne, who I've done a lot of episodes with, who works with Alan Jackson's wife in the DA's office in LA. Probably worked with Alan Jackson when he was a prosecutor. But the fact that I asked him for a comment and got nothing back. So I don't think he really wants it to be any more broadcasted than it already is, that he was connected with this woman, because she comes off as so attention seeking, so looking for a payout and looking for another career as maybe a defense expert. I mean, it's nice work if you can get it. You get paid anywhere from, I think the lowest, like $300, $400 an hour. Someone left me a comment that someone got paid totally as a defense witness, $60,000. But you can rack up quite a hefty bill, these expert witnesses, in the thousands and thousands of dollars. So she's on board. She'll testify to what when she's needed, and she said she saw it in the Globe. Again, another person who saw this story in the paper and wanted to get involved. Does not look good for the defense. These are not the kind of witnesses you want.
Spoke with Mr. Jackson.
I didn't speak to him.
You did not speak to him?
Not speaking, not verbal. There was some email communication or text communication.
You communicated with him? Was that
Yes.
on the 17th or the 18th?
Yes, both, I think.
Both. Okay. And when did you render this opinion as far as what you've testified to here today?
Shortly after he sent me the files.
Now, in regards to those files, you testified in this court a couple days ago, correct?
I did.
You were under oath at that point, is that correct?
Excuse me?
You were under oath at that point, is that correct?
Yes.
And when you were asked specifically what materials that you had reviewed, you included a number of items, but you did not include anything about a Dr. Sheridan affidavit, anything about a UC Davis report, or anything about any sort of bite history for a canine that lived or resided at 34 Fairview Road, correct?
That's correct, because I hadn't reviewed them then.
And so since then, 2 days ago, now you've reviewed them, correct?
Yes, I became aware that those files existed, yes.
You became aware of those files? Were they not sent to you previously?
No, I think there were technical difficulties regarding me and the computer and downloading from Dropbox. And so, yeah, so they were, I think they were sent to me, but I think I didn't open them.
Now, with reference to these technical difficulties, did you ever express any of those technical difficulties, or, hey, I can't see the whole file, or there's other things in here that are listed that I can't look at?
No, I wasn't aware.
And so with regard to, as far as your reaching out or contact in regard to this case, how did that come about?
Okay. I saw an article, I believe it was in the Boston Globe, regarding this case. And I didn't, initially I didn't think anything of it. Then I saw an article that indicated that there was some.
I haven't seen you anything about anything, any article. You saw an article in the Boston Globe about
Yes.
this case, is that right?
Yes,
And how did you come upon it? You have a subscription to the Boston Globe?
I did at the time, yes,
Did at the time. What time was this?
in May,
May of 2024?
yes.
And how long had you had a subscription to the Boston Globe at the time that you saw this?
It was either a 6-month subscription or a year, I don't remember.
And that was the first time that you had seen anything about that?
First time I paid attention to anything like that, yes.
Now, again, you had testified here just a couple of days ago when I asked you questions about this, is that right?
Yes,
It wasn't in your testimony just a couple of days ago that the subscription was actually for a year or 18 months.
no,
Remember, not 6 months, a year.
So only one person can talk at a time. So was that your testimony, doctor?
No, I don't believe so. I believe that I said it was a 6 months description or a 12 months description.
In any event, you saw something, is that?
She wants to upgrade her suits from this. I mean, it's just, it just came off across to me. I'm just going to call it like I see it. Very desperate. Compared to the prosecution witnesses, they all came across as professionals. Maybe some a little, I'm thinking of Trooper Paul, maybe a little nervous, maybe a little fast talking. But none of them came off like they had. Notice that none of them testified that they had read it in the paper and had got in touch with the Commonwealth.
That's the first time that you recall seeing anything in the media about this case was in May of 2024?
It was the first time that I recall reading anything about it. Correct.
Now, did you write a report in regard to your opinions that you've testified here today?
No.
And I asked you that a couple days ago as well?
Yes.
Okay, so in the last couple of days, you've had time to review a UC Davis report, Dr. Sheridan's affidavit, and any sort of dog bite history, but you haven't had a chance to write a report?
Objection.
Sustain to that point.
You haven't written a report, correct?
That's correct.
Why not?
I haven't been asked to write a report, sir.
Did you ever look at anything related to Mr. O'Keefe's head injury?
I looked at.
Objection.
Sustained. Yes.
This is why the cross-examination is sometimes called the engine of truth. And she came off very well and direct. And this is why I love going to trials. This is a dramatic turnaround. She was really polished up, looked pretty decent. In cross, we knew different because we saw her raw deer. I mean, in direct, excuse me. But when it gets to cross, she looks like an attention-seeking, money-hungry whore of the court, as Dominic Dunn would say it, trying to get a few pennies and some notoriety so she can get some kind of career as a dog bite expert in this case. And I'd be curious to see what article she read, who wrote it, what was it about. I'm interested to see the veracity of her claim that she read this in the Boston Globe at that time. And interestingly, this might be the one thing that Turtle Boy and I agree on. He wrote on Twitter, let me just pull it up. I don't think I need to show it to you, but it's up there if you guys want to see it. In a remarkable agreement of opinion, Aidan Curdy writes, Dr. Marie Russell says she first found out about the Karen Reed case in a Boston Globe article. I gotta be honest, I find that hard to believe. I do too, Aidan. The Globe ignored this story for a long time, and she probably wouldn't admit to reading it on Turtle Boy. Either way, it doesn't really matter. What does he say? She was wonderful. If this is the best Lally has to discredit, then he completely failed. Well, I don't think you saw the point. The point isn't about where she read it, Aidan. It's the fact that she read it and then chose to involve herself in a high-profile trial. So that's the point of that. B. Tim says AJ has been showing these marks on the arm for 2 years, saying it was dog bites, but never hired a dog bite expert in that time. What he based that opinion on What did he base that opinion on? Was he just lying to people in the court? Yeah, good point. It was dog bites before they ever had a dog out. Well, it looks like dog bites. And as someone who's gotten bit by a dog, I can tell you it looks nothing like my dog bites look nothing like this. Let's skip looks
forward.
cheap. I'm sorry. This medical is a value. It's a long, really, I think we have a long.
For specific,
You're not aware of any findings in the NAS report that has led to questioning of the value and scientific objectivity of such evidence.
for specifically identifying a bite mark to an individual that might have inflicted the bite mark, I think that's what that applies to.
Okay, I'm not asking, again, this is a report. Are you familiar with it or are you not familiar?
I'm familiar with a summary or a abstract of a report that indicates that forensic odontology is not is deemed not reliable when it comes to that particular narrow aspect of forensic odontology.
And so you're not familiar with it. Also talking about sample data and collection, analyses of these, interpretation and reporting of results. You're not familiar with those areas of the NAS report as well?
What specifically, do you have a specific question about that, or?
My first question was whether or not you're familiar with the report. You indicated that you weren't.
I did not read the report.
From the report.
Mr. Lally,
Sorry.
let the witness answer one question at a time, one speaker at a time. Doctor, can you answer that question?
Sure. I did not read that report.
Now, you had written some articles that you were asked about in reference to dog bites or canine dog bites in the emergency department. Is that correct?
Yes, co-authored.
Something that you published or authored or co-authored sometime in the late 1990s. Is that right?
Correct.
And in that instance, you talk about law enforcement dogs and a bite and a hold technique, correct?
Yes.
Now, part of the reason in writing that article had to do with sort of the applied forces and the unique spectrum of injuries from those kind of dog bites. Is that correct?
Yes,
And that spectrum of injuries would include deep puncture wounds. Is that right?
they can. Yes,
Severe crush injuries. Is that right?
correct.
Large tissue avulsions and lacerations. Is that right?
Yes,
Wounds necessitating surgical debridement. Is that right?
yes,
Bony injuries ranging from cortical violations to displaced fractures. Is that right?
yes.
Her other area of expertise is police, she writes, abuse. That's her other area of expertise. So that's on her CV online.
Neurovascular damage. Is that right?
Yes,
And other wounds at high risk for infection. Correct?
correct. But we also put a disclaimer in that article.
I'm not asking you about any disclaimer.
Okay.
I'm asking you about that's what type of injuries that you were looking at. Is that correct?
Yes, but we saw a skewed population.
You skewed population in a study. Is that correct?
What we saw the worst of the worst.
Or no? Did
Yes.
You skewed population in the study.
I'm sorry, I don't
Did
understand the
you
question.
skew the population.
Did we
in the
skew
study?
did we skew? No, we reported on all the ones that presented to the emergency room for care. However, a lot of dog bites don't present to the emergency room.
And so from the different cases that you report on within that article, are there any of those cases in which there is injuries to just one aspect of one part of the human body for the victims of dog attacks or dog bites in those cases?
There may have been. That's a summary of the 700 cases, more than 700 cases.
That's a good point. So he's supposed to bite and scratch just the arm and no other part. I mean, if they viciously attack and really do damage, they do harsh damage, but not if they're constantly biting and grabbing, they're only going to grab one part. That's an interesting question I wouldn't have thought of.
Is it normal in any kind of animal attack for injuries to occur on just one side of one arm of the person that's being attacked, clawed, or bitten?
There are many people who are bitten or scratched.
I'm asking
Only-
if it's normal, ma'am. That's all I'm
Okay,
asking.
so hold on, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Lally, ask a question, wait for the answer, and then start a next question. Do not interrupt the witness.
I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm asking for an answer response to the question.
So this is something that the judge does constantly, humiliate Lally in front of the jury, asking him to speak up in this really annoyed way. She can get a little annoyed with Alan Jackson, but Lally seems to take the brunt of this stuff. And he always apologizes, profusely. But what she's talking about is they can't talk over each other because there's a court reporter there who has to write it all down.
So ask a question and ask it in a manner that you get a responsive answer.
Dr. Russell, is it your testimony that it's normal in an animal attack for injuries to occur on just one side of one arm and nothing else, anywhere else on that person's body?
It can be, yes.
I'm not asking if it can be. I'm asking, is that normal?
I can't say.
Sustained, you have to ask the question differently.
So from your observations, you looked at various photographs of Mr. O'Keefe, is that right?
I did.
Did you observe any injuries on any other part of his body that you would attribute to an animal attack, whether it's claw marks or bite marks or anything else?
No,
So nothing on his left arm, correct?
nothing that identified as a dog bite or
Nothing on
scratch.
his legs, is that correct?
That's correct.
Nothing on his torso, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you say an animal attack, possibly a large dog, correct?
Yes.
Can you say what type of animal left these marks that you attribute to an animal attack?
Not with 100% certainty, no.
Can you say where physically Mr. O'Keefe was located when the animal attack supposedly occurred?
Objection.
Can you say that?
No.
Can you say when Mr. O'Keefe purportedly sustained these injuries from an animal attack?
Well, to a certain degree, yes. Before, yeah, it was before death, but not long enough to have a big inflammatory reaction. So yes. So minutes to hours before death.
Minutes to hours before death, but at some point before death, correct?
How do these innocence fraud defense wars of the court do it? How do they live with themselves doing this? Pouring themselves out, saying things that are completely give them no credibility at all. And just for the money, just to take the money, what a way to live. Awful, horrible woman.
Yes.
Can you say anything about the breed of dog?
No.
Can you say anything about whether it occurred inside the house, outside of the house, anything like that?
No.
As far as you mentioned some of the different things that you reviewed over the course of your testimony, for the preparation of your testimony, both prior to Tuesday and between Tuesday and today, any of those things contain any forensic reports or phone examinations or anything else related to this case?
Could you repeat that? What kind of examination?
Any
Phone?
of the materials that you reviewed, whether it be prior, sometime between May 17th and Tuesday, or anything that you reviewed between Tuesday and today, did any of those materials that you reviewed contain any sort of forensic reports or anything beyond the UC days?
Yes, I saw a photograph.
You saw photographs. And to that point, you never actually saw Mr. O'Keefe's body, correct? You just saw photographs?
That's true.
And with respect to the UC Davis report, as far as canine DNA, are you aware that the results of that were that there was no canine DNA on Mr. O'Keefe, on swabbings that were sent to the UC Davis lab?
I'm going to allow it.
Yes, but there was clothing in between.
Okay, but the swabbings came from the clothing with tears in the clothing in the same area as the injuries, correct?
She should know that. That is a really key, terrible point for the defense. She should know where these swabs came from. And she no dog DNA. Because she doesn't, she still wants her paycheck. She's going to, no dog hair. I mean, I have 2 cats. I walk around with so much cat hair, invest in so many cat hair brushes. And John O'Keefe, thankfully, was a neat freak and didn't even pick up anyone else's dog hair or cat hair or any animal. Oh, probably ate a hot dog or some piece of pork that's what they got a little bit on his shirt. That's they detected pig. I'm so surprised. Pig DNA. So surprised they didn't go with wild pig, wild boar running around Canton, Massachusetts. I mean, that's the caliber of defense we're dealing with at this point. It's so absurd. It was such a gift. These defense witnesses, one after another, to the Commonwealth. They would have done so much better just ending with their cross-examinations and ending it. This made them look like cheap hired guns, hiring more hired guns to go up for the defense. That's what these lawyers look like. And you notice what I pointed out on Twitter, and I pointed out in my live, and I think it's worth repeating, is that in Yanetti's opening, he says, the Commonwealth is going to present their case, because he knew at that time what a compelling case it was. You're going to hear a lot of evidence, 8 weeks worth of evidence, 8 weeks worth of evidence. We're going to have a day and a half worth. No, he didn't say that. He says, but wait for our cross-examinations. That often holds the key to the truth. I'm paraphrasing, okay? But the key to the truth is in those cross-examinations. Note, he didn't say the key to the truth is in our brilliant defense witnesses. He didn't even mention his defense witnesses in that would hold the key to the truth. The key to the truth would have been in their cross-examinations. They should have ended it there. This was such a poor showing. And it just made them look terrible. And even worse was their computer. I mean, it just went from, I don't know. Maybe I should do a poll. Who was the worst defense witness? But they were all so bad, it's hard to pick one. For me, it was Lucky Loughran, I think, was the worst. Second, what I would say Marie Russell was the least worst of the three, because the defense expert basically had to say that he realized he was wrong, and the things that he testified to in his affidavit, sworn affidavit, he's basically admitting he perjured himself, was wrong. And he's so sorry, he had to apologize on the stand. That's coming up, guys. That's next. We're almost done here. But did not know that the swabs came from the shirt. Well, there was a shirt in between. They swabbed the wounds. No, they didn't. They swabbed the shirt. Oh. It's a terrible, terrible moment for the defense.
Okay.
Do you know that or no?
I couldn't tell if they came from the wound or the clothing. I thought that they came from the clothing, but
You couldn't tell by reviewing the report whether or not swabbing.
That's so disingenuous. I thought they came from the clothing. Really? Because you just said that there was clothing in between. So do you see how she changes her opinion on a dime? Kind of like she's tailoring her opinion to the evidence. Isn't that interesting? Almost a little bit like Lucky Loughran tailored his evidence to the defense's theory. These are exactly the kind of witnesses you don't want to have in trial. I think this will be shown in classes to aspiring lawyers as what not to do, what kind of witnesses not to bring in the future. Really do.
Came from clothing or from Mr. O'Keefe's body.
I know the clothing was sent to the laboratory.
You know, the clothing was sent to what lab?
To the DNA laboratory.
To UC Davis?
Oh, I don't know that. No, I'm sorry.
You are aware that that came back as far as negative for any canine DNA, correct?
That's correct.
Now, as far as the injuries that you observed, your testimony is that both the top teeth of whatever animal this is and the bottom teeth of whatever animal this is both made contact with only the top of Mr. O'Keefe's arm or the posterior of his arm?
Both sets of teeth made contact with certain of those wounds, yes, but not all of them.
But neither the top nor the bottom teeth made any contact that you observed, assuming your issue as far as an animal attack. There's no evidence of any animal attack on the bottom of Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean by bottom.
Anterior,
Interior? That's correct.
and nothing on the posterior or the anterior of his left arm,
That is correct.
and nothing on his legs,
That's correct.
nothing on his torso,
Correct.
nothing on his head. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as the marks that you did observe that you do attribute to an animal attack, can you even say with certainty whether or not those marks you feel are bite marks versus scratch marks? Do you have any idea which are which?
There may be a combination.
So is that a no?
Well, no, I think that the ones that had the linear abrasions above the small round punctate abrasions, I believe that those are bite marks from upper and lower teeth.
Now, you indicated that part of what you had reviewed was a dog bite history for a dog from 34 Fairview Road named Chloe. Is that right?
Yes,
And there were a couple different instances of that dog essentially getting in a fight with other dogs, correct?
yes.
And at any point in time, did you see anything in there as far as a dog?
So I'm so confused. Was it a dog that put the top, none of the top and some of the bottom in, or it kind of bit, it was biting softly, killing softly with this bite? I mean, what are we talking about here with the bite? Where are the canine teeth? It's just a soft, playful bite.
Dog going after a human in which there was no other dog present.
No,
And there were actually photographs contained within that material of dog bites from that dog, from Chloe, correct?
yes.
Did any of those dog bites that you saw in those photographs look anything like what you observed in the photos that you saw of Mr. O'Keefe's arm?
No, but, okay.
That's all, man. Objection, Your Honor.
No, so the answer is no. You can get back up, Mr. Jackson, but the answer to that question is no. Next question.
So is it your testimony that from reviewing what you reviewed, that what you observe on Mr. O'Keefe's arm is consistent with an animal attack to the exclusion of any other possibilities?
To a degree of reasonable medical certainty, yes.
It's like she's been practicing that reasonable medical certainty in the mirror.
So as far as any other sort of blunt impact injuries or other manifestations of how those scratches got there, you're saying, nope, had to be an animal attack.
I've seen thousands of wounded.
No, ma'am. What I'm asking is.
All right, so Mr. Lally, I'm going to let the witness answer.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I've seen thousands of people with injuries to their skin. And from blunt, from sharp, from all different mechanisms. Those injuries did not look like.
And And I say dog bite every time I'm paid.
Blunt force injuries.
So it's your testimony that the injuries to his arm don't look anything like blunt force injuries that you've seen before. You wouldn't characterize them as that?
That's correct.
And that's based on some photographs and some other materials that you began reviewing sometime May 17th, 2024.
Yes, I'm an ER doctor. I need to make a diagnosis quickly when I see something, and I'm trained to do that. That's my specialty.
Were you being asked as an ER doctor to come to a quick conclusion in this case?
No,
But you did anyway.
it's how I'm trained.
Nothing.
Right. It's how I'm trained. I came to a quick conclusion without looking at all the evidence. Well, that was impressive, wasn't it? Wasn't that amazing? Would you trust her with anything? And she also worked in a prison for a long time. It's a prison doctor. Retired. Yeah, retired for years and years and years. But according to the poll, the best is yet to come. Last one up. But before I do, I want to say I have a new episode up on Patreon. It's about Wendy and Charlie Adelson's big move. Check it out. I want to thank my new patrons, Irina Campbell, Jennifer Klearman, Patricia Linz, Nancy, Suzanne Kniffin, and Pat Brooks. Pat Brooks, I want to thank you for upping your pledge, and also thank you for your super chat last time. Got me right as I was leaving. Thank you for your support of the show. Couldn't do it without my patrons. Check out the episode up on Patreon. It's pinned to the top of the page. Also pinned to the top of the chat tonight. Lindsay needs help fighting in court, needs help getting a lawyer. She's in litigation with Aiden Turtleboy Kearney. And she really needs your help. If you can send what you can to the Give, Send, Go, please do. All right. Hold on 1 second. So last but not least, we have Richard Green. This is his cross. He was testifying to the 2:22 a.m. House Long to Die in the Cold search. I love how I don't know if you caught in the opening, or the news piece said the prosecution has argued that search was done at 6:23 or 6:24 in the morning. Prosecution didn't argue. They had 3 witnesses to argue it. 3. And one of the witnesses wrote the program of Axiom, which he used to demonstrate in court, and works for Cellbrite, which is the company that's used to extract data. Really impressive witness. This guy, check him out. So this is his cross. So like I said before, cross-examination is often called the engine of truth. You can do really well on direct, but when you're challenged, that is when you really get to see the veracity of some of these claims.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Do you know who Miss Jessica Hyde is?
I do.
Are you aware that she wrote a report in relation to this case?
Yes.
Specifically in regard to the Google searches from Ms. McCabe's phone that you were just talking about?
Yes, sir. It was very specific about that search.
And have you had a chance to review that report?
I have.
You also know who Ian Whiffen is?
Certainly, yes.
And are you aware that he wrote several reports or submitted several items in relation to, again, the exact topic that you're testifying about in relation to?
And do you know that he testified that you were wrong, totally wrong, unequivocally, totally wrong? Yes, of course I know who Ian Whiffen is. Like, you can see his voice. I got really impressed. Of course I know who that guy is.
The Google searches on Ms. McCabe's phone.
Yes, sir, I understand that.
And have you had a chance to review those materials as well?
Yes, sir.
You understand that they both disagree with what your opinion is in relation to those searches?
I absolutely understand that, sir.
Now, just as far as your qualifications and certifications go, I'm just having a difficult time. From the certifications that you have, at what point were you, or what, if any, certifications do you have with reference to Cellbrite as a tool, as far as your use and interpretation of data from Cellbrite?
Certainly. So my certifications are much more broad. They have to do with a lot of the fundamentals and how we conduct the investigations and what tools we should know, and when we need to know we need to do more work and such like that. Cellbrite, I do not have any specific Cellbrite certifications. They offer many of them. However, I have participated in, God, I can't even count, hundreds of their training events that they offer, both Cellbrite, Axiom, Belkasoft. They all provide the community with fantastic support as far as that. And although certainly a class can be very good, but you really need to stay up to speed. You've got to participate in the most recent understanding being put out there. Even in the changes of their tools will change from one version to another.
So you have his shirt is too big for his neck, his jacket, all these things the jurors are going to evaluate. And I know it sounds mean of me to talk about how the witnesses are dressed, but I was also critical, if you caught my live, in one of the Commonwealth's witnesses, how she was dressed for court, because the jury is all evaluating how you dress. You want to look professional. You want to look like you're someone that you would trust their opinion. And this guy's jacket is about, almost like David Byrne, Stop Making Sense, shoulder pads coming off off of his shoulders, bunched up. Just looks like he's in there to get a paycheck. Jen B. Tim says Jen McCabe should file suit against Green right now based on this testimony and him cherry picking his report. I also wonder if she can sue Yannetti. That's an interesting question. What happens to, in my view, these innocence fraud lawyers is usually nothing. They get no repercussions for their behavior, and it goes on and on and on. There's a case in Southern California right now with the Innocence Project where the Innocence Project case got an $8 million, had a client killer and got his case overturned with new evidence of a witness. That witness happened to be the Innocence Project lawyer's boyfriend. And the boyfriend said, this lawyer made me testify falsely that I did this crime. And she got her client off based on that new evidence. And I believe some recantations, don't quote me on it, that's just my memory of it. And got $8 million of taxpayers' money into the civil courts. And the Innocence Project, Southern California Innocence Project, is standing behind her. And don't fall for that nonsense that, oh, well, this isn't the National Innocence Project. No, it's their franchise. Are the McDonald's hamburgers down the street any different than McDonald's headquarters? No. It's all the same movement, all done the same way. So no repercussions coming her way. And this emboldens them. You've seen the way the defense attorneys have acted in this case, quoting their own leaks. So they make something up. They make up a line based on, or leak a piece of evidence and give it some meaning, give it to Turtle Boy, like the House Long to Die in the Cold. search and say it happened at 2:27 a.m. And then they quote it in their own filings to the court and say, well, we have media reports that this has happened. And that's how they leaked all this information out into the public. I don't think Yannetti will face any consequences. I don't think Alan Jackson will face any consequences. They just get bolder each year as this goes on, as this movement snowballs and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's a organized network of lawyers and media people, all connected, all looking for a buck. And experts too. Look at how many times Elizabeth Loftus has testified. If Marie Russell could get into this, I think I called her Marie Mitchell. I think I have that. Marie Russell would get into this, she would. Get into this line of work, she would. Everyone's got their hand out. Everyone's in for a buck or to further the ideology, which is our legal system is so systematically unfair, and we need to get more and more of these dangerous and deranged psychopathic predators out of prison. Doesn't matter how, by any means necessary. It really started with that ideology. I don't think they knew in the beginning how rich it would make everyone. And then they get rich on the media. And then come the awards to further their career, podcasts, documentaries. It's all one big network of organized crime. That is what innocence fraud is. And if this works, so don't get me wrong. When I'm saying these are the worst defense witnesses I've ever seen in a case, don't get me wrong that I'm saying that there's no chance for Karen Read to get off, because when you have these innocence fraud campaigns, you get very wacky verdicts. And they have a way of seeping into the courtroom. We like to think our court works in a bubble that can't be touched by the outside, but that's not true. They have tremendous impact on our courts, and they wanted it to. They wanted to poison the jury pool. They wanted to have influence. And look at the media reporting on it. It has been bottom of the barrel, always very preferential to the defense, always talking about the defense narrative, giving no time, very little time to the Commonwealth. And Lally has done a tremendous job. Has he been an entertaining prosecutor? Would he be a prosecutor that I would choose to watch over another prosecutor? Probably not, no. But has he been effective? Has he known this case? Does he know the evidence? Did he know the exhibits? Did he know this case inside out? And did he present every single one of the pieces of evidence with precision and care? Yes. Was it convincing? Yes. For me, it was, but I'm, of course, not the juror. I had an opinion going into this, but it really could have been changed. I truly believe that if there was some incredible new evidence that John O'Keefe were guilty, it would be the first innocent person that needed to harass witnesses and poison the jury. But okay, a little hard to believe. But if there was some kind of really compelling evidence, I might have been convinced. I had my eyes and ears open for it.
And so, to the point, as far as you have no certifications in regard to Cellbrite as a tool and how to use it, those kind of things.
That's correct, sir.
And in this specific instance, at any point, did you reach out to Cellbrite to go over sort of your findings or your opinions in relation to this search?
I did.
And who, if anyone, did you speak with from Cellbrite?
As close as I can remember, I know it was Leo, and I believe it was Santos.
And do you know what part of Cellbrite they work in or what they do?
Well, he was in the technical support and contacted him. He had informed me that they had elevated this up to some higher level technical support when they came back. His comments to me, if you want to hear them, was that this, okay,
That's for his comments, but at
Okay,
some point.
I
you
understand.
talked to technical support, is that correct?
absolutely.
And they indicated that they would refer you to actually Mr. Whitten's team.
No, sir, they did not.
So you weren't told that you were referred to Mr. Whitten's team and you weren't contacted by anyone from Mr. Whitten's team?
No, and I forget the exact date. A couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, out of the blue, I got an email from Ms. Whiffen saying, and I can't, I don't want to misquote them, but
No.
certainly I got an email
I'm not
from
asking
him.
you about any specific conversation
Okay.
you had. When I'm asking, and I'm asking about a time period more back in 2022.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Back in 2022, did you reach out to Cellbrite in relation to this search and your opinions related to it?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, was that the point that you spoke to someone from technical support?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, did someone from technical support actually refer you or tell you that they were referring you to Mr. Whitten's team?
No, sir, I had absolutely no idea about that.
So no one from no one from Mr. Whitten's team reached out to you and then you just never called them back? That didn't happen?
Now that I'm aware,
Now, you were asked to look at a couple different phones, and I'm assuming by counsel for the defendant, correct?
can you say that once again? I'm sorry.
You were asked to look at 3 different phones is what the testimony was. And I'm
Correct.
assuming that was by some counsel for the defendant, correct?
If
No
I-
one else asked you to look at these phones,
Oh,
correct?
correct. Yes, it was from the defense asked me to. Yes.
And so the phones that you were asked to look at were Mr. O'Keefe's phone, the defendant's phone, and Ms. McKay's phone, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as Kerry Roberts' phone, were you ever asked to look at that?
No.
And with respect to the defendant's phone, was there any GPS location information or data that you observed in her phone?
So we had an indication that location had been using, there was something called Apple Map tiles. And those probably when you use the Apple Map app, that it, in order for it to work, it will create these little tiles or little pieces of pictures and they get stitched together to give you the view that you see on your phone. Now, for that had been working, we know location data had to be working. This particular location data, the location data cache, is known to only be present on the phone for a couple weeks. Now, what I don't know, and Mr. Lally, if I'm going too far, just please stop me. What I don't know are what measures were taken to preserve that data, whether it was put in airplane mode, where the location services were turned off, whether it was put in a Faraday bag. And quite frankly, Mr. Lowry, I don't know if they did all that, if the location data would have remained or not. I've never tested that, but all indications, it would have had location data on the day that it was seized because we received the Apple Map tile. But when I got the full extraction, there was no location data there. Now, I did observe.
So there was no
Okay.
GPS location data on the defendant's phone, correct?
Correct.
From what you observed.
And again, if I'm, there was, I did find deleted location data from April of 2022.
Now, with respect to the defendant's phone, did you also find deleted web history data from the afternoon of January 29th, 2022?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't observe that.
Didn't observe it?
You know, I really don't have a recollection if I specifically looked for deleted data. I don't believe I did. I don't know if I would have had to have a cause to.
Now, with reference to, you were asking a question about location accuracy within 3 feet. You did.
So he called up in 2022, talked to Cellbrite. They told him it was wrong, and he's like, "Well, I'm not going to get paid." I mean, now he's turning beet red. We've got 2 beet red witnesses now. It's wild.
Some sort of thing last night on CellHawk using that tool. Is that correct?
Certainly.
And you were asked to do that after Trooper Carino testified yesterday. Is that correct?
I understand you testified yesterday.
And so with relation to you creating sort of that document, and that's now been marked as an exhibit, was that something that Mr. Yannetti asked you to do in relation to Trooper Garino's testimony? Yes.
Well, in all fairness, you need to ask Mr. Yannetti. I could make an assumption here. I mean, if
I'm not.
I don't know quite.
Doing anything.
I'm not trying not to answer you, but I was asked by Mr. Yannetti to perform that search.
So, Mr. Lally, please be cautious.
Yes. So, Ms. Green, with respect to that 3 feet of accuracy, are you aware that what Trooper Garino was testifying to in regards to that had absolutely nothing to do with phone applications or anything to do with data from phone or a cell hawk or a tool or anything like that?
Now, I don't know the full extent of what Mr. Garino would have been testifying to.
And so you're not aware that his testimony was actually in regard to reviewing cruiser camera video from the Canton Police Department and photographs of where Mr. O'Keefe's body was, and then mapping that using GPS latitude and longitude based on that within a 3 feet accuracy.
The objection sustained. Ask it differently.
Are you aware of any of what Trooper Garino testified to yesterday?
What you're mentioning, I may vaguely be remembering, and again, I'm not trying to not answer your question exactly. My conversation with Mr. Yannetti is 3 foot when it comes to GPS data. Can you tell 3 feet from GPS data? And no, it's not known to be that reliable, and particularly Apple location services. How that applies to the trooper's testimony, I can't say with specificity. I'm happy to opine on location data, though.
There's no question.
Okay.
Sir, but thank you.
As he looks over to the defense in his bright red. This is terrible. Terrible. I couldn't believe these defense witnesses. I'll say it again. I couldn't believe them. They're so bad. One after the other. And you know by the Karen Reed, the Free Karen Reed group, silence. Karen Reed is in La La Land. She's being surrounded by yes men and women who are all telling her it's all going great. And she may get acquitted. But it won't be because of what happened in court. It will be 100% thanks to the innocence fraud campaign, not to this. And that's why I always say, read the transcripts, find out before you put your heart and soul or money behind any campaign to free anyone. Read the transcripts of the original trial transcripts, because their version, and already you saw that in Alan Jackson in his motion to dismiss, misquoting witnesses. Already the Free Karen Reed crowd are quoting, and even some of the crowd on this side are misquoting Jen McCabe, what she said about time data. So really always go back and check for yourself.
May I have a moment, John?
Sure.
Misquoting Lally in his opening statement.
Now, sir, with reference to Safari and deleted tabs, isn't it true that there is no way for a user to delete a tab, only to close it? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, well, when you close a tab, all right, you're taking it out of the active state, and it's going to an inactive state that some people could call deleted. Now, the Safari history allows you to go in and delete history by certain date ranges, but you can also go into specific websites that you visited and delete those. Now, if you want me to continue, the WAL file itself, you can't open up a WAL file and say, oh, I want to delete that record. but functioning the phone through the user interfaces will have an effect of deleting data within that wall file.
Isn't it also true that Celebrite uses that red X to annotate that the record is no longer active and has been recovered? Which could then make it incumbent upon the examiner, being you in this instance, to determine if it was actually deleted, correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking. It's yes.
That's all I'm asking.
Okay. All right.
Now, you stated in your affidavit, in your testimony, that you used the Sanderson SQLite or SQLite Forensic Explorer to examine the Safari tabs DB associated with the wall file log. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, in your analysis using that Sanderson Forensic Explorer, was there an indication that House Long to Dying Cold was found in the wall file?
Yes, sir.
Now, with regard to that, did you independently verify the cause of that timestamp that you observed there?
Yes, sir.
Now, is it your interpretation that the timestamp means the search appeared at that time solely based on the naming of the field in the database?
No, sir.
Now, can a wall file contain items that are so new that they're not yet committed to the database?
Yes, sir. That's the purpose of it.
So the wall file holds the newest information until it's merged to the database, including additions, deletions, changes, all of those items, correct?
That is correct.
Now, according to your affidavit, the device was in active use between 2:23 a.m. and 2:31 a.m. And just to be clear, I'm talking about Ms. McCabe's device, correct?
Correct.
And what other searches did you see at that time, and where were they?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? I couldn't quite hear you.
Searches did you observe in that time frame, and where were they performed?
Well, there were a number of websites, including the Raining Men exhibit that we did. There was Ozone Basketball, I believe. There, Hockermont, Smith, and I can tell you that those similarly, the last entry with those there is the browser state DB file. It's not at the beginning, it's not at the end, and I have a couple thoughts on why that may be in regards to Ms. Hyde and Ms. Whippen. I'm happy to share those with you.
I'm not asking you anything about that, sir.
Very
What I'm
good.
asking is it possible for a change request in the wall to a SQLite database pertaining to one particular field, leaving the other fields as what they were previously?
I want to answer your question as well as I can. So can you repeat that one more time?
Is it possible for a change request in the wall to a SQLite database pertaining to one particular field, leaving the other fields as what they were previously?
So I'm having a little trouble answering this. So if I'm understanding correctly, when the wall file gets written to the database, and could that have made the change ending with this deleted record? Is that the question? I'm sorry. I want to answer you. I'm just
That's
a
okay.
little lost on how you're asking it.
And the question?
Sorry?
Do you not understand the question?
Why don't you move on, Mr. Mayor?
So is it possible that the URL field, which has the website name, was
He doesn't know how to answer the question. You notice you didn't see this with any of the Commonwealth witnesses. If they needed to rephrase to answer succinctly, because they know that defense attorneys will twist your words, they asked to rephrase, but very seldom did the experts get lost. This guy is lost. And Celebrite had to rewrite their program after this guy. I mean, come on.
was updated to the newest search while the timestamp retained the original search. Is that possible?
No, not the way on this particular phone in this particular iOS, and also with the user interacted with it, that it would have been at the 227 or before. The way this very specific iOS was happening, that is consistent with all the other ones that I observed out there on the phone related to specific web searches and activity.
Is it possible that the search for How Long to Die in the Cold at 6:24 a.m. was the most recent search completed in the tab?
Oh, well, not in that tab, but I certainly agree with you that there was a second search done at around that time.
Now, is it also possible that the search that you assert took place at 2:27 and 40 seconds in the morning is the same as the search that took place at 6:24:51 a.m. for that same search?
Yeah, that's inconsistent with the actual data I'm seeing on this actual phone with this precise iOS version.
Now, as far as the search in Safari with the string, as far as the smotot.apple.com included, is it, you recall that search as far as being a suggestion from Apple, from the iOS, as far as the search with how long to digest food?
Okay, I didn't hear your whole question, but I heard the last part about how long to digest food. So I can opine on that. So my feeling on that is when the How Long to Die code was put in, that was most likely a Apple suggestion. And I've done some testing now. The time period I'm doing my testing, is after the fact that this would have actually occurred. But as I tested that on a live phone and using a Google search, I could see that how long to digest food would come up. I also noticed the specific phrase, how long does it take to die from hypothermia? So as you do this Google search, you try to repeat what's being done. Those are two suggestions that actually came up.
And so that was something that was a suggestion and not something that was actually searched, correct?
Yeah, no, and I know that's different from my affidavit from about a year and a half ago, in all fairness, but
that's entirely different.
One person,
correct?
Mr. Lally,
I'm sorry.
one person at a time.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, in fairness, I want to give you my best knowledge as I understand it saying here today, including after my review of Mr. Whiffen and Ms. Hyde's report. So I want to do everything I can to shine as much light and clarity on this as possible. So as I repeated, since that time and did the search, I would notice that is one of the things that would come up, and it would have a little picture of like a dinner plate or something like that. And there was actually a similar, if not the same picture found in the artifacts of that phone.
So just to conclude, that's not what you said in your affidavit that was actually filed under pains and penalties of perjury with this court, correct?
Yes, and on that day, that is what my true and proper belief was. Okay, since further testing, I have found that I now believe that was probably an automatic one, and if I've caused you any distress, I apologize.
Doesn't cause me any distress.
Okay.
What I'm asking, sir, is that that's what you filed because that's what you thought at the time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And subsequently, you've done further testing, and that's shown that you were wrong, correct?
That is correct.
Now, according to your affidavit, there was a search for how long to digest food at 6:23:49 a.m. that precedes the search for how long to die, and the misspelling here would be the key CLKD at 6:23:51 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, is it possible that the how long to digest food was a predictive suggestion from Apple rather than a search entered by the user? Is that also correct?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I believe that it was, if it had picked up a earlier search from 227 of how long to die in the cold, and then you went to retype it in, it may have then tried to give you something similar at the 6:23 and 6:24 timelines. So hopefully that answers your question.
So steps, going to Mr. O'Keefe's health data, steps doesn't necessarily mean that someone is physically taking steps, correct?
Again, the research that's done for this is steps tend to be a very accurate artifact.
So steps could not also be coincided with, say, movement in a car or other sort of movement of the phone as far as the health data is concerned?
Sure. Well, I did, geez, quite some time ago, do some testing with an actual iPhone 11, the same make and model. and took a drive and tried to see if it would register steps. It did not. I sat in a chair and tried to duplicate how I thought I would walk to see if it recorded steps. It did not.
That sounds like a scientific experiment, doesn't it?
I took the phone from the floor to the ceiling to see if it would record a flight of stairs. It did not. The only with that iPhone 11, same make and model that I got, it was very consistent with me actually doing walking steps, and that was whether I had it in my shirt pocket, my pants pocket, or clipped onto my belt.
That's your testimony?
That is my testimony. Yes, sir.
Now, are you familiar with GPS native locations?
Yes, sir.
And GPS native locations takes its data as far as finding latitude and longitude from a number of different sources, correct?
Well, true GPS, okay, is going to take it from the GPS network. What you may be thinking of is assisted GPS, which the iPhone uses, and that assisted GPS will try to, it kind of does a crowdsourcing. So it'll look at cell towers, what's in range as far as like Wi-Fi's and a number of other devices to try to get you an enhanced GPS location and give you the best data possible.
So it takes GPS native locations within an Apple iOS device, takes from 4 different sources. Isn't that correct?
It tries to get from a variety of sources, like I just mentioned. Not all would be available.
Now, with regard, did you look at any GPS native location data with regard to Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, sir.
And would you agree then that the GPS native locations didn't record any movement of that phone after 12:25 a.m.?
12:25. I would have to look at the exhibit to see what the time of that last entry was. I don't want to misstate something to you, sir.
Now, you were asked about sort of the elevation change in 3 floors, ascending, descending, and saying that you couldn't pinpoint a time period or within that 12:21 to 12:24 time period from the health data. Is that correct?
Correct. It happened somewhere within that time.
Could you pinpoint more specifically if you looked at the GPS native location data?
No, well, we're talking Apple Health and GPS location. So
But you said you couldn't do it.
I'm sorry. Which one are you asking about? Please.
What I'm asking is, you said you couldn't pinpoint it within the GPS health data. What I'm asking is, if you had looked at the GPS native location data, could you give a more specific pinpoint as to where Mr. O'Keefe's phone was?
I'm going to allow that.
Maybe we can see briefly.
Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, do you guys get the drift of this crazy
Barrel
defense exposing people any minute? Crazy defense witness? It's so poor.
Pinpoints where in that time period.
Go back.
You had
Sorry.
indicated earlier in your testimony that the elevation change from 12:21 to 12:24, you could not pinpoint where in that time period, or specifically where in that time period the elevation change occurred, correct?
That's correct. It's a time range. Yes, sir.
So what I'm asking is, had you looked at that in the GPS native location data, would you have been able to more accurately or specifically pinpoint when that occurred?
Okay. So the location, are you looking for a yes or no? I'm sorry.
Yes or no?
I could try. There was, yes, there was location data within that time period. Okay.
And are you aware that Mr. O'Keefe's phone from the GPS native location data was actually a half mile away from 34 Fairview Road at the time that it made those recordings in the GPS Apple Health data?
Right. Yes, I understand he was using Waze, and it had made that recording. I understand that. That's why the finding that 3 minute and 1 second offset brings into serious doubt if that time was accurate. And when you apply that to the location offset, then the Apple Health data and the GPS all aligns. Now, I have not decoded Waze and found out what functions they were calling and all that. And I don't mean to indicate that I have, but I mean that the latest version of Axiom is bringing that up as an artifact and a timestamp related to Waze. And in the case of here, where minutes are important, I thought it proper that I bring this to the attention of the case as a possible explanation.
Right. He's talking about Axiom. Ian Whiffen literally wrote Axiom, wrote the software for Axiom, who testified for the Commonwealth, not defense, the Commonwealth.
As a possible explanation?
As a possible explanation, sir, yes.
The three different clocks that you were talking about, are you aware that those are actually associated to power usage and not applications?
Right, that power usage was directly related to the Waze application.
So it's your testimony that those three clocks apply to the times in Waze? Is that your testimony?
I'm saying that the timestamps were directly related to Waze. It was reported by Axiom when you applied the filter and say, show me all the artifacts related to Waze. These were artifacts that came up related to the Waze bundle. So I guess you need to give it the weight it deserves. Like I said, I've not decoded Waze. That's not something that has been done, but I think we need to consider the 3-minute offset as it applies to giving significance to the Apple Health data and the Waze GPS.
Now, turning to Ms. McCabe's phone again, as far as the search, what you indicated as last view time, are you aware that that is actually related to a time that it was actually focused on the screen as opposed to your interpretation of it?
I'm aware that from that it appears to be the last time and date it was focused, and when it was no longer was focused, that's when the timestamp was written. That's what's consistent with the other data on this particular phone on this very specific iOS.
Now, with regard to looking at this search, you mentioned that you used something called an ArtX tool. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And are you aware that's a tool that was actually created by Mr. Ian Whiffen?
Absolutely.
And with regards to this specific issue, as far as how this data is being interpreted from the browser state DB versus the knowledge C database and the wall file and all of those, the P list and all of those other kinds of things, as far as the misinterpretation of the data has then caused Mr. Whiffen in further versions of Cellbrite to revise that so that this kind of error can't occur.
Sure, happy to answer that. So Mr. Whiffen's testing was not done with this specific version of the iOS. The iOS has been known to be changing the way this artifact works. To do proper analysis, the researcher that he is, he would need to work with that same iOS. Now, in regards to the Cellbrite question, they have two versions of the Cellbrite Physical Analyzer. One is the standard physical analyzer that's been out for several years now, probably is majority use in the community. It's a tool that takes that raw data and it puts it into human terms that we can look at and understand and write reports like you've been seeing here. So they have the Cellbrite Physical Analyzer that's out there. I believe it's 7.68, but don't quote me on that. And then they have a new version that's come out called Insights, and this operates more on a where you can put multiple cases in and that. It's only the Insight versions that they have bothered updating and no longer reporting on that time. Their current physical analyzer program, and I tested this a few days ago, still reports on that search occurring, and that timestamp. So currently Cellbrite is providing examiners, law enforcement, and people worldwide with two different versions giving two different results. That I can't speak to more than that, other than I've tested that, and I see how those programs are working now.
My question, sir, yes or no, is are you aware that Cellbrite...
Right. So they're giving two different two different results, or you just don't know know how to interpret data, dude.
Has had to modify
Seem to be straightened out by Subright's help desk.
their software based on misinterpretation of data, as you've done in this case.
Yes, with the asterisk, they updated one of two programs.
Nothing further. No further questions.
Okay.
Harry had to admit it. It was absurd. Absurd. Absolutely absurd. The worst defense witnesses I have ever seen in this case or any other case. And we know that we're halfway through, if not more than halfway through, the defense's case. There may be 3 more defense witnesses. Karen Reed is not going to testify. Anytime a defendant says it's up to my lawyers, you know that they're not going to testify. It is completely their decision. That's a cop-out line that they give. No lawyer can stop a defendant. It would be ineffective assistance of counsel to do so. And she's been warned about ineffective assistance of counsel. See, innocence fraud lawyers are not great lawyers. They're great criminals is what they are. They have a criminal mind, and they're really good when they're not restricted by the law. So especially outside of court, they can kind of cross the line in court, keep crossing the line a little bit, pushing the boundaries. For example, Yanetti's opening, Karen Reed is framed where the evidence really doesn't support that. He's making an argument in opening where you're really just supposed to give an argument based on evidence and lead the jury through, like a tour guide, what you're going to show them. But they're really good when they're not restricted by the law, where they go outside the law and go right, or the court is really what I mean. The law of the court, where they can go to the media and lie. They can create a witness harassment campaign. They think like the criminals they represent. And there really is some truth to Breaking Bad with this, where Jesse says to Mr. White, you want to find a criminal lawyer, a lawyer who's a criminal. And that's what an innocence fraud lawyer is. So this has been an incredibly successful innocence fraud campaign, so that if she gets acquitted, everyone goes, see, she got acquitted because she was not guilty. We all knew it because of the campaign. No, it was the campaign, not the evidence. It's the other way around. And that's what makes it so successful, is that all our media is on board representing this case like the defense has any merit, like has merit in their arguments. They're so unbelievable, unreliable. So keep your eyes wide open. Be skeptical. There is more nonsense and cons and frauds in true crime than ever before, because they found it's always existed to some extent, but it's really just gained popularity in the past 30 years with this kind of, I believe it's kind of married with this anti-establishment, anti-government, anti-police, anti-legal system narrative that's really pushed in our press. And our press really helps along with these campaigns. That's where the money is. So keep your eyes wide open. Have a skeptical eye when you on any innocence campaign, no matter how good it sounds in the paper. Always check it out, because they always make every single one of them sound good. Oh, this happened? This happened? Really? Oh, someone else just confessed? Oh, really? They were dating the lawyer? Oh, that's a little different, isn't it? Because the one key ingredient is in an innocence fraud campaign is they're always leaving a lot out of the story. So I'm going to end the way I've ended my show so often lately with my hit single. I hit my boyfriend with a car. The Karen Reed song that I wrote. Have a great Saturday night, everyone. Have some fun. I'll see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and a witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, like John, you were my mom. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. John, you were my mom.